Most people still use Claude as a glorified ChatGPT, but if you're doing that, you're leaving 80% of its ability on the table. Because over the past year, Anthropic has quietly built a full workflow stack on top of Claude, shipping different features like artifacts, projects, memory, skill, connectors, Claude Cowork, and even Claude Design. Once you fully understand how these features work together, Claude becomes an actual operating layer of your work. By the end of this video, you're going to know about 7 features that most people are using incorrectly, how to actually use them, and some crazy use cases that you should try right now if you want to get the full value out of Claude. Now, before we get into the individual features, I wanted to show you something first, because if you use the web app, it's not as obvious as when you use the desktop app. So if you come over to the desktop app, you'll see immediately there's 3 different workspaces inside of the one app. So the first is chat. This is where you could talk with Claude and brainstorm on what tasks you want to get done. Cowork is where you can actually use Claude in order to complete agentic tasks on your behalf without touching your keyboard. And last but not least, they have code, which is specifically for development. And if you come to claude.com/download, you could download the desktop app where you can access each of those workspaces from one place. Because the truth of the matter is that Anthropic stopped trying to make a better chatbot a long time ago. They're instead building a system where Claude can answer questions, do work for you, and write code all from the same place no matter where you are. And I did want to point out that you could use the app from desktop or from mobile, which is absolutely insane. So as I walk through these 7 features, don't think of them as random updates. Think of them as building blocks of a singular workflow system that nobody is using to its fullest potential yet. So the first feature that I want to talk about is artifacts, because I think that most people are using at most 10% of what these are fully capable of. Because artifacts allow you to build tools, visualizations, and experiences by simply just describing what you need. So let's see how this actually works. So if you come into the Claude app, on the top left right here, you're going to see artifacts. Just click into this. And right here, you'll be able to see your artifacts, which is all the artifacts that you've built. As of right now, I only have this one whiteboard one, but let's go through and actually build one together. So I'm going to hit on new artifact, and then you can see that you can choose from all these different templates. So they have apps and websites, documents and templates, games, productivity tools, creative projects, quiz or summary, and start from scratch. In this case, we're going to start from scratch. So I'm just going to click on this, and then I'm going to say this: build a small AI-powered content brief generator. The user pastes a YouTube topic, and the artifact uses Claude in order to return a video angle, 3 title options, a hook, a short outline, and a thumbnail concept. So now that this is done, let's actually go through and see what it created. So if I click on this, we could see that it's literally just text on a page, and I don't like that, so we're going to come through and edit this even more. So I'm going to say something like this: let's beautify this artifact. Can you add a designated chat box with a slight drop shadow, as well as adding a blue color palette with different shades of blue? And now this is going to go off and actually make those changes just from this plain English prompt that I gave it. And now while that's going through and creating that, I wanted to show you this. So if you come to this website, madewithclaude.com, you can see a bunch of different artifacts with tons of different use cases. For example, we have ones for tools, design, data, graphics, education, programming, creative, web design, game, applications, entertainment. There's so many different ways to use artifacts that people don't even know about. So now that this is actually done creating those style changes, let's go through and actually try to use it. So as it says here, I'm just going to drop in a topic. For example, let's do AI tools that help with content creation, and then hit send. And now this is actually using Claude's capabilities in order to generate the angle, the titles, the hook, the outline, and the thumbnail concept. And just like that, we got everything that we needed. So now we have a solid video angle, we have those 3 different title options, an opening hook, an overall outline of the video, as well as the thumbnail concept. But what most people don't understand with these artifacts is that you can actually come up here to publish right here, and then you can publish and copy the link, where you can share the link with anyone that you want. And the best part is that they don't even need a Claude account in order to view it. And the reason that this matters is because people are still copying and pasting prompts and outputs to send to one another, whereas a person that actually knows how to use artifacts is going to create mini web apps that they can then send to clients, their team, or even just their audiences. And I do also want to note that you can attach an MCP to this. So things like Asana, Google Calendar, and Slack can all be attached to this, so it's not not just a static output anymore. It's based off of real data. Now, the next feature that I think is really underrated is Claude Design, because this allows you to create visual work such as designs, prototypes, slides, one-pagers, landing pages, and so much more. But I also wanted to point out that Claude Design is powered by Opus 4.7, which is Anthropic's most capable vision model. Now, one other thing I wanted to point out is that this is only available for pro users, max users, team users, and enterprise users. So if you don't see this yet, it's because you don't have one of those subscriptions. So in order to access Claude Design, you have to do it through the web app because it's not available on the desktop app. So if you come to Claude.ai, on the left-hand side right here, you'll see this little color palette that says Design. Just click on that. And immediately you'll be brought to Claude Design. Now, I want to point out that this is a completely separate product from Anthropic Labs. This is not just an artifact with extra steps, because this actually has the ability to read your code base or your design system when onboarding in order to build you a specific design system, which it's then going to follow throughout every task that you give it. So in other words, you're able to do things like linking your GitHub, linking your code base from your computer directly, upload a whole Figma file, or even add specific fonts, logos, and assets, which means that your colors, your typography, and your components all get added to every project as long as you select it from here. So let's go through and actually try to build something. So in order to get started, you see we have 4 different options that we can choose from: prototype, slide deck, template, or other. We're just going to start with a prototype. So the first thing you have to do is give it a name. So make sure you give it the name and then choose the design system that you want to use and then just hit create. However, I have this one right here that I haven't done anything to yet, so we're going to use this. Now, upon opening this, you can notice a few things. So if you come down here to import, you could see that you could get started by uploading a Fig file, connecting it to your GitHub. You can even grab a web element directly from your or a competitor's website. You can give it a link code folder. You could use skills and design systems, or you can reference another project that you created in design. So now I'm going to say something like this: create a minimalistic landing page for a local tree cutting service. I then give it the style notes as well as going into the different sections that it needs to include. So it has first its hero sections, it then has its services, then a why choose us section, a process section, testimonials, and a final CTA. And then all I'm going to hit is send right here. Now that this is done, we can see that we have a full prototype for a complete landing page with different sections that you can click to, as well as actually adding animations, which is insane. But what's really impressive about Claude Design is the way that you can implement changes after the prototype is done. So if you come up here to the top right to comment mode, you can click on this and then you can choose specific parts about the website that you want to change. So for example, I'm going to come through and I'm going to say, make this bright pink, and then send it to Claude. And now it's going through and it's actually going to make that change for us without having to do anything. And I did want to note, if you don't see the changes made right away, you have to click reload up here on the top. And just like that, the change was made. But that's not all that you can do, because you can even hit on edit right here in order to get specific sliders that are going to adjust the CSS style. So this is things like size, the layout, typography, colors. But aside from these 2 editing phases, you can also just describe general changes right here. So if I wanted to say make the overall tone darker, this would go through and make the whole tone of the website darker. Just like that, we have a dark themed version as well. Now, the next feature that I'm noticing a lot of people use completely wrong is projects. So if you come into the desktop app, you can click on projects on the left side right here to see all the projects that you have. So for example, I have this long form scriptwriter right here. So essentially what a project is a workspace that has its own instructions, its own files for knowledge, and it even keeps your specific chats in a separate window. So now there's 3 things to understand with the project. So the first one is that the files that you upload for project knowledge are available to every chat inside of this project. So if you have a brand voice document, a styling guide, pricing sheet, or even something like your last 20 sales calls transcribed, you can drop them into your files for knowledge. And once you do that, now every chat that you have with this project is gonna have that context. And now number 2 is the instructions. Essentially, this is just a system prompt that runs every time that you use this project chat. So in your instructions is where you're going to do things like give it a specific tone, a specific format, specific role, as well as even giving it constraints and what you don't want it to do. So now instead of having to say that every time at the start of a chat, it's already baked into this specific project, so it's gonna follow that format every single time. And last but not least is that projects actually have their own memory. So for example, if I were to create another project, the memory from the long form scriptwriter is not gonna affect the new project at all. Now, why these projects matter is because they're turning Claude into an actual workspace where it knows exactly how you want your work done. Now, this next feature, or I should say features, are among the biggest updates to happen to Claude in 2026, and most people still have them turned off. So the first one is memory, and I do want to point out that this is available for every type of Claude user. So even if you're on the free plan, you have access to memory. And essentially, once you turn memory on, Claude is going to automatically scan your standalone chats from the last 24 hours and create a synthesis of them. So it's going to know exactly what you do, what you care about, your preferences, your reoccurring topics, and then it's automatically going to load this memory into your next chat so that you can stop re-explaining yourself every time. Now, the second feature is search past chats. So now this isn't available to everyone. This is only available to pro users, max users, team users, and enterprise users. And now what this allows you to do is you can simply ask Claude to find what you discussed before, and it will pull together the appropriate context to keep that conversation flowing. So you don't have to retell it everything from your past convo. Now, like I was saying, most people still don't even have these turned on, because if you come over to Claude and come into your settings, under capabilities, you're going to see memory right here, but you need to understand that these are turned off by default. So if you want to start using memory, you need to make sure you come in and turn these on. I did also want to point out that you can import your memory from other providers. So if you started using ChatGPT and you now want to switch over to Claude, all you have to do is click Start Import, and then you'll just copy this prompt and then paste it into ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever LLM you were using before you switched to Claude. And then all you're going to do is paste the results from the other LLM into this box so that it knows exactly where you left off with it. Now, there's not much to show with the memory, but there is one part that you have to be cautious with, because as it's highlighted here, this is only going to be able to access the memory of your standalone chats. It's not going to interfere with your project, so you need to be mindful when you're working between different projects and chats, because the context is not going to fill in both situations. Now, before I get into the next three features, I wanted to remind you to smash that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date on all the changes in AI and know exactly how to implement them into your personal workflows. Now, this next feature is probably something that you heard about, but you're cautious to try, and that's going to be your connectors. So if you come into customize right here, you can see that you can connect your apps directly to Claude so that it can complete your work for you. And I do want to point out that these became free to every user in February, so you're able to access these no matter what plan you're on. And now, when connectors first came out, they only had a handful of tools that you could connect to, but as of right now, they have over 150 different tools, which is absolutely insane. So you could hook up things like your Google Drive, your Gmail, your Canva, your Figma, your Notion, and just about any niche specific tool that you can think of. And now, the most thing that people get wrong with these connectors is that people look at them as nice to have. But once you turn on the right tools, Claude actually becomes a workplace assistant that you can rely on to look at your actual data. So we can come over here and just say something like this: looking at my Google Drive, please pull the latest 5 long form scripts and help me plan for my next 2 videos, keeping the formatting and topics similar. Now, I didn't import any knowledge to this whatsoever, and now it's going through, it's actually loading up the request to get into my Google Drive, and now we could see that it's asking for approval to access the drive. So I'm going to hit always allow. So now that this is done, let's see what it actually did. So it went through, it first found 3 scripts that were explicitly labeled long form, but it noticed that I asked for 5. So it then went through and found 2 more that fit the criteria. It then went through and read all of those files so that it has the context that it needs so that it knows how to format the next 2 videos. So it first went through, it recognized the pattern along the 5 different scripts. It gave us an honest read of things that we should know before we pick the next 2 topics. And then it gave us the next 2 ideas that it would recommend. So this right here is showing you that Claude can access your Google Drive in order to do research for you. It can also be used for planning. So you can say something like this: look at my calendar for tomorrow and pull any unread emails from people I'm meeting with, and then give me a 1-page brief for each meeting. And now this actually went through, it checked my calendar, and it noticed that the entire week ahead, I have no meetings, no events, and nothing on my primary calendar. And the reason this matters more than people realize is because that connectors are the bridge that connects Claude with your actual work. Because skills, projects, and co-work all become way more effective when you don't have to keep copying and pasting every single little detail in one by one. And these give Claude the ability to actually grab real data. Now, one of Claude's most underrated features right now is their ability to create agent skills. And now, in plain English, all a skill is it gives you the ability to create a reusable instruction package for Claude. So instead of you having to go through and give it a prompt telling it your tone, your formatting rules, your workflow, and your examples, you package all of this into a skill one time, and you can use this skill for specialized tasks. So now coming down here, we could see that at its simplest, the skill is just a directory that contains a skill.markdown file. And that file is going to tell Claude exactly what that skill does, when to use it, and how Claude should follow it. So essentially, instead of Claude acting like a general agent, it's going to become specialized to whatever the skill you are using. And now as we can see, Claude already has a few of these created that are publicly accessible. So they have a canvas design, which allows you to generate beautiful visual arts inside of PNG and PDF documents. They also have one to build artifacts. They have one to build MCPs. They have a theme factory, which helps you to create toolkits for styling artifacts with a specific theme. They have a skill creator, so you can create your own skills for any specialization that you need, and so many more. But before I show you how to access these, I first wanted to show you that if you come over to Anthropic's GitHub and then you come under sources right here, you can scroll down to find knowledge work plugins. Once you click into this is where you can see real examples of skills that were created for things like productivity, sales, customer support, and so much more. And I don't want you to think that skills are just some vague feature, because they're reusable folders that you can study, copy, edit, and build off of. So here's how you're actually going to access them. You're going to come into the Claude desktop app, and then on the left-hand side, you'll see Customize. Click into this. And then you're going to see that you can click Create New Skills. Just click into this, and then on the top, you'll see the plus sign. Then you can click Browse Skills in order to see those pre-built skills, but we're not doing that. Instead, I want you to click Create Skill, and then you can do 3 different things with this. You can create it with a chat, you can write the skill instructions, or you can upload a skill, which is where this page from GitHub comes into use, because you could click into one of these that you want, and then you can click into the README file where you can then download the raw file, then come back over to Claude, and then you can upload the skill right from there. I didn't want to do that. I want to show you how you can create a skill just with Claude alone. So you first need to make sure that you come into Browse Skills. Make sure that you have this /skill creator installed. And you'll know it's installed because it'll be a gear icon and not a plus icon. And once you do that, you can come back over into a regular chat. And then all you have to do is say, I want to create a brand voice skill using this structure. Please generate me a brand voice skill. And then I just explain the skill. So I say use this skill whenever the user asks for social posts, emails, scripts, landing page copy, or marketing content. And then I just describe the tone, what to avoid, the formatting I want it to follow, as well as giving it a few examples. And once I included all of that, all I have to do is hit send. And now that this is done, you could see that it created this skill.md file, which we can open up right here in order to fine tune it to exactly what we want. But other than that, you have to hit save skill. Now you'll see that this was saved. So now in order to access that skill, all you're gonna do is open up a new chat, type /, and then just look for the name. So I have the brand voice one right here, and I'm now using that skill file so that Claude knows exactly the format that I want. So now, rather than having to paste everything from tone, what to avoid, formatting, and examples every single time that I want to create a social media post, all I have to do is type /brand voice and then just explain exactly what I want it to create in my brand voice. And that's the real value of skills. So in simple terms, the way that I would look at skills is that anytime you have a task that you have to complete more than 3 times, you should turn it into a skill. With things such as brand voice, client reports, coding standards, content calendars, audit templates, research workflows, all of that can become reusable instead of having to reprompt it from scratch every time. Now, the last feature that I want to talk about is routines, and you probably haven't even messed around with these because of how intimidating they seem, but they're really very simple. So this allows you to put Claude code on autopilot. Essentially, all a routine is a saved Claude code configuration that consists of a prompt, one or more repositories, and a set of connectors. And as we can see here, there's 3 different types of triggers that can cause these to run. So you can have them run on a schedule, whether this is hourly, nightly, weekly, or just once at a specific future time. You could also use APIs to trigger this on demand, or you can run this in response to a repository event such as a pull request or a release on GitHub. And as we can see here, these are just a couple of the use cases that this can be used for backlog maintenance, alert triage, bespoke code review, and so many more. Let's get into actually building these because they're really not only meant for coding. So if you come into the Claude desktop app and then on the top, make sure that you're in code, you can see routines right here. Once you click into this, you'll see this screen with all of your existing routines, and you can see that you can create a new one. So we're going to hit new routine, and then make sure you do this as a remote. And here's where you're going to give it your name. So I'm going to create a short form researcher and packager, then give it the instructions. So for example, I want you to act as my daily AI news researcher and short form script writer. Each day, research the latest meaningful AI news related to ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. Focus only on updates that are interesting enough to turn into content. And then I tell it for each strong update to give me a source link, a summary, a short form script following the style, pacing, and formatting of the reference videos that I gave it from my Google Drive. It's also going to give me 3 different title angles as well as a description and on-screen visuals. And then I just go through and give it important guidelines that it needs to follow every time. And as you can see, you can then choose how this is going to trigger. So I want this to run daily at 8:30. You then need to incorporate your connectors. So you need to make sure that you have your connectors added if you're using them in this routine. So for example, this is going to look at my Google Drive in order to see the formatting of these different scripts so it knows what to follow. So then just hit create. Once it's created, you can come back into routines and it'll pop up right here. So once you click into this, you'll see that this is active and it's set to run tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. But if you want to test this before you let it just do its own thing, you can hit run now in order to see what it's going to look like. So I actually ran into a problem with Google Drive's MCP not being able to create the file, but I was able to easily fix that. And as we can see, it now saved that file to my drive. So let's go through and actually check it out. So this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted just a simple document that shows everything in one spot. So I now have update number 1 with its source links, as well as a summary, short form script, the title angles, the description, and the B-roll visuals. But I don't have just the one update because it did this 3 different times to give me 3 different ideas. So if you've only been using Claude as a slightly smarter ChatGPT, you're only using 10% of what it's truly capable of. Because artifacts let you build and share AI-powered apps. Claude Design generates real visual work and hands it off directly to Claude Code. Projects are going to hold your long-term context. Memory and past chat search keep you from having to re-explain yourself every time. Connectors allows you to connect Claude to more than 150 different tools. Skills turn Claude into a specialist for your exact workflow. And if you want to see a full breakdown on how Claude Design should actually be used, I'd check out this video right here.